Hello, my friend. Welcome to a VREA update video. Many of you have seen me work on VREA Cosmetics since its inception back in 2017, and you've been with me on this long, very arduous journey since. So I owe you a proper update, and I will make this as quick and straightforward as possible so that you can better track that journey. I wanted to create a makeup company with active skincare benefits that would be sold at a reasonable price. I realized once I got into my 30s that any bit of anything that I put onto my skin needs to serve a purpose. I wish I had started thinking like that back in my late teens, but when I was a teen, let me tell you, back in my day, we were still basking in the sun glory with baby oil lathered on and a reflector panel. Okay, so we can make sure we got that golden tan, baby. You know what I mean? Priorities were a little different back then. As I started becoming more concerned over what I put onto my skin and cosmetic chemistry became a passion, I couldn't help but notice the astronomical amount of misleading narrative in the beauty marketplace, the marketing fluff, how I like to call it, the bullshit. Companies sprinkling a tad bit of an ingredient without that ingredient being at its active level of performance, but blowing your mind with the literature and selling you misinformation, essentially. People can say that their products are infused with or packed with certain ingredients that we know to be good, but in many cases, those ingredients are used purely for marketing purposes, not efficacy purposes, if that makes sense. Ingredients, as they are created by ingredient manufacturers, have in large part very robust research and case studies, and these manufacturers are able to determine the levels of efficacy for those specific ingredients. In other words, if an ingredient has been shown to achieve its peak performance on your skin at 0.1%, let's say, in a formula that's properly stabilized to house it, of course, but you only use 0.01%, you can say that your product has that ingredient and market it to the masses that don't know any better. But in reality, that ingredient will not perform the way people think it will. I started noticing a lot of companies throwing things into their formulas so the marketing experts can talk about it, but without any transparency, without any mention of those ingredients being at levels that would meet the claims. No transparency in the claims, in fact. Brands saying, well, 98% of our users notice an improvement in this, that, or the other, but hardly ever disclosing, well, this is how many people were in those studies. This is how long the studies were performed for, etc. Wait a minute. Was that your mom, sister, aunt, grandma, boyfriend in a basement and 9 out of 10 of them noticed something? You see where I'm going with this? Needless to say, once I started learning about the cleverly misleading ways of the industry, the fire ignited in me, and I knew I wanted to create something better. I knew in my gut that consumers deserved better. The journey started from there. In May 2017, I started working with Jeremiah at putting together a business plan, hiring business attorneys, trademark attorneys, you name it. Initially, I wanted to name the business Want Cosmetics because the whole reason for this journey in the first place was because I was wanting better cosmetics. Now, initial searches Jeremiah did through the United States Patent and Trademark Office showed Want Cosmetics as being available. So naturally, we purchased the website domain, we secured all the social media assets, we engaged our business attorneys to draft the company papers, and then unleashed a slew of trademark attorneys to dive into every single market in every single country in the world and determine if Want Cosmetics would be good to go. On June 26, 2017, I mentioned in an Instagram post for the first time that I'm working on a business idea and asked if you guys think that I should enter the industry sector as a businesswoman with red hair, like I had back then, or go back to blonde. Now, that question may sound silly to some, but most of you who are here know that I always listen to and I'm always guided by your feedback, so. On June 28th, 2017, we learned that Want Cosmetics would be an issue because of a couple of remote international businesses, and we were advised not to pursue further. I was crushed. The following day, on June 29th, I took to Instagram to let you know, give you an update, that the name I had picked out for the business came back as having a trademark issue. So I was just kind of keeping you in the loop as I was going. In July, I created stories to ask you what is the #1 makeup product that you simply cannot live without. And by a landslide, that answer was concealer. That is when I decided a concealer will be the product we will be working on. On August 5th, I took to Instagram to let you know that I'm having a really hard time figuring out what to name our company and asked you for your thoughts. I opened this up to you for discussion and for your name suggestions and any ideas you may have, and boy, let me tell you, you guys showed up. By August 22nd, 2017, we were in full brand research mode, taking all the comments, suggestions, and ideas, taking suggestions from the people we were working with as well, digging, diving, and most importantly, looking within myself to see what name would create that spark. Sorry, I have a little hair here and it's like, okay, then in the same time, we began engaging various professionals, looking for someone who could help guide us through the labyrinth-like process of creating product. Someone with cosmetic chemistry experience. That was our ultimate goal. See, I know makeup, but I have no idea how to formulate makeup and I have no idea how to bring makeup to market, so I knew I needed help. The process took months. The original person we hired actually turned out to be kind of a waste of time and money, so we had to go back to the drawing board after like 2 months of working with that person. We pulled on every leaf, turned every stone that we could find. We joined so many various organizations, cosmetic chemistry associations, we attended events, network our butts off, you name it, we did it. Then in December 2017, we finally found that special person, and around that time is when I had decided on the name as well, VREA Cosmetics. The name was inspired by your guys' comments actually, because many of you have said to me, Alex, why don't you pick something that has meaning in your native language? Well, with that suggestion in mind, the Romanian translation for want is VREA, VREA in Romanian. So VREA became the chosen name. That is when we went back to the trademark attorneys, and they spent a few weeks digging through all the markets once again, and the name came back with the green light. Woohoo! By February of 2018, we had all the paperwork and agreements in place with our new leading chemist, and we began the process of changing all the legal papers we had drawn for Want Cosmetics from that to VREA Cosmetics. And in March 2018, we made the first online poll available to you. The poll in which you told us what type of skin you have, what under-eye concerns you have, what shade would suit you best, what you would want that concealer to perform like, what type of coverage you would like it to have, what price point you would feel comfortable with. You name it, it was all in that poll. And let me tell you, over 7,000 of you completed the 10-minute survey by all marketing standards. That is huge. With all your requirements, plus my requirements and performance guidelines in place that I really wanted for this, I spent the next 3 months going to practically every lab and manufacturer that you could imagine that had all the required licensing in place and could work on the concealer, because that was another thing. In April 2018, the name of the company was revealed to you, and so did the hope that we could launch in April of 2019. Now, why a year later, you ask? Well, because everybody and their mothers that I would see online was always able to bring product to market in 9 months. So there I was. There was like no reason in my mind to think that we, as determined and as organized as we were, couldn't do it in 1 year. Well, I very quickly learned that what usually takes 9 months to a year is mostly white labeled products, also known as private labeled products. And I mentioned this in the past. Essentially, brands that go to manufacturers who have formulas already made and already tested. So all they do is put on their logo on that product and launch. Or best case scenario, they sprinkle in a couple more ingredients onto those base formulas to make it their own and have a fluffy marketing story, then put their label on it and then launch. but no significant changes are done to the base of the formulas in those scenarios, and no innovation, no additional testing processes are really needed in those instances compared to the full protocols needed for a product that is innovative and built from scratch. So, needless to say, April 2019 launch date went out the door. Now, back to the story. In July of 2018, after months of interviewing laboratories, we began the formulation process. We got a killer lab. We're like, okay, let's go. But that process proved to be extremely difficult. What sounded like a relatively challenging project on paper proved to be a monumental challenge in real life. For most people, especially those private labeling, 3, 4, maybe 5 submissions, basically back and forth with their formula changes if they're adding anything on top, is what's enough to get to the final desired product. Meanwhile, here we were, over 10 submissions in, we're in 2019 already, and we are still working on the formula. And keep in mind that the lab that created this concealer formula is one of the best labs in the United States. Believe you me, okay? Everybody industry knows of these guys. Everybody. They're young, they're sharp, they're agile, they're innovative, they're really good at what they're doing. They're total cosmetic killers. And even they were having a hard time. What can I say? My vision was profound. But by the time we were done, the lab has said to me, Alex, listen, you came in here wanting a concealer with active, clean, vegan, cruelty-free ingredients down to every ingredient, I remind you, not just the final product, okay? And you're leaving with a clean, vegan, entirely cruelty-free eye cream with active skincare ingredients that color performs like high-quality makeup. They also said, good luck to anybody trying to reverse engineer this. And they said to me, if you're going to sell this formula at the masstige price you said you will, you have got yourself the greatest concealer on the market. Fuck yeah. After we were finally done with the formula, we began testing. Some of the testing I cannot mention right now, but I can mention stability testing began to ensure that the product met the intended physical, chemical, and microbiological quality standards, as well as functionality and aesthetics. I always stumble microbiological. Compatibility testing to evaluate the migration of chemicals between the formula and its intended container, that container being the component, essentially the primary packaging, the tube that will house the formula. And I've said this before, side note, everything is a chemical. You are made up of chemicals. Spring water is chemicals. Air is chemicals. Our formulas are clean. So please don't let the word chemical concern you. Everything is a chemical. We've done antimicrobial preservation testing, repeat insult patch testing to check if there could be any potential allergies, etc., etc. All together, testing has taken almost a year of my life. With all the testing for the concealer in progress, I began working on the component design, the secondary packaging, the format, designs, website wireframes, etc., etc. There are so many moving elements. In that time frame, I continued using the concealer, by the way, which I still do to this day. And over time, I really started noticing the incredible difference that using the product was making on my skin. And I knew in that moment, I wanted to corner those benefits even more and give you a more well-rounded skincare approach. So I began working on a surprise second product, solely skincare, designed to give your skin those incredible ingredients that we were using at active levels in the concealer on days or times of the day when you may not be wearing the concealer, if that makes sense. In my mind, I did not want to deprive my own skin of all those benefits, so I really wanted those ingredients to be on my skin at all times. Another element that slowed down the process for us was the fact that we engaged a European regulatory company from the very beginning. You see, not all countries and territories in the world will accept the same cosmetic ingredients or formulas. They don't all even accept the same packaging. And while most companies create products solely to meet the requirements of their launch country, because that's faster, easier, and cheaper, they will likely be faced with challenges when looking to distribute internationally. Suddenly, they are faced with formulas and packaging that those territories will not accept. So they have to go back into their formulas and essentially change the formulas, make changes. They have to create new packaging, and all that adds up on top of securing the trademarks in those countries and doing all the legal paperwork, etc., etc. I wanted to do things differently. I wanted off the bat to create a formula that would be accepted by the US, Canada, and the EU. That meant we had to hire experts in those territories, and from there, every ingredient had to be subjected to scrutiny. Every test, every design, every letter of every word, every claim, everything that we did, if I farted, I basically needed for approval, everything had to be looked at multiple times by various people. It's been so time-consuming and so far more expensive than what a starting brand would usually go for, but I felt that was the right step to take. If I didn't want those of you from countries outside of the US to wish for the product but not be able to get it. I wanted VREA Cosmetics to be able to have product available as soon as possible, if not immediately or simultaneously in more countries than just one. And if it launches in the US, I wanted the other 2 territories to have access to it right away as well. EU and Canada were chosen, by the way, from the votes in that poll that I mentioned earlier. Over 95% of you were from one of these 3 territories. And since we don't have $20 million to launch this everywhere off the bat, right now at least anyway, because Jeremiah and I are essentially bootstrapping and paying for everything ourselves, because of that, we had to be selective, and 30 countries, UK included, made it in phase 1 of distribution. In our immediate plans, I have Mexico, South America, Australia, India, Russia, and the UAE. Phase 3 and 4 will hopefully roll out even more countries, and I'm hoping that we can cover all countries in the world by 2023. It's a very ambitious goal. Let's just say that. Now, back to the story. Since April 2019 launch became virtually impossible, I was aiming for September 2019. But all those moving elements that I just mentioned, unfortunately, could not be completed in time. September 2019 turned into, for sure, Q1 of 2020. But in January of this year, as we were gearing up to prepare the start of our manufacturing of the concealer, I pushed a pause button in order to see what will happen with COVID-19. I pressed pause. We told all of our ingredient suppliers not to fulfill our orders until further notice. And I decided to pull a product that we had brainstormed to launch in 2021, which would have been our 3rd VREA product. I basically pulled that into 2020 and began working on it immediately to see maybe we can launch this in 2020. Because it's a skincare product, and skincare products are actually easier from my experience to bring to life, much easier. Plus, we were looking at manufacturing this product on a smaller scale, which would have made the process a lot faster. Also, I believe that was the right choice, and this way we could still launch VREA in 2020. The manufacturer of our concealer, by the way, contrast, so you can understand, is way bigger, so therefore a little bit slower. But we chose them not only because of their track record and ability to bring my vision to life, but also because they have certain criteria that most manufacturers don't, believe it or not. I wish I could say more, but I have learned the hard way, as some of you know, that there are people listening in and quite literally stealing ideas. So until we are ready to launch, I cannot divulge any more of this concealer that will revolutionize the marketplace. Seriously. Turns out that making the executive decision to pause the manufacturing of the concealer was in fact a great idea, because our manufacturer actually shut down for quarantine at the end of March. And we would have been in production actually at that time. And with them shut down, we would have had product wasting away in vats. Think about that. Product that has an expiration date, if I may add. In May of this year, it looked like even if we started manufacturing right away in August when they opened, sooner than November, we would not be able to have the concealer fully ready to launch. So I made another decision to push the concealer till Q1 2021. When you'll see it and see the foundation of it, you'll see why an end of the year launch wouldn't really have made a whole lot of sense, business sense. So now we are full steam ahead with 2 skincare products, right? One that was supposed to be next year's 3rd product. We have that one, which I proved the formula, by the way, just a few weeks ago, and it's amazing. And also, we have the other skincare product that was supposed to launch at the same time with the concealer, right? Right. I'm already working with European regulatory people. I will have the final component approval over the next couple of weeks. We're set to launch the consumer testing very shortly with actual consumers, and that's another 20 grand, but who's counting? And I'm also trying to figure out how to create our own internal beta testing where you, my friends, will be at the center of. Anyway, those are just some of the moving elements that are happening right now, but essentially this is where we stand. I really wanted to launch the 2 skincare products this year, and we still could have. If we rushed, we would have been able to launch around the end of October. But frankly, with the current situation in the States right now, I simply do not believe that launching VREA in the midst of this chaos will be the right business decision. Not to mention that my unhinging desire to make these products absolutely impeccable for you is playing a big role in this as well. Listen, working on products for 3.5 years costs a lot of money. And every day that we're spending money and not selling is adding a lot to the financial stress. But I don't know how I could live with myself if we rush things. Do you know what I'm saying? I don't know how I could live with myself if we did that. So I would rather it cost us money than our integrity as a brand and your experience using VREA. That is unquestionable for me. I can tell you with the most amount of certainty, though, that we are more than 75% of the road there. So there is no way, I mean, over my dead body, there is no way that VREA Cosmetics will not launch in the first part of next year. No way. Even with all the shutdowns, with all the delays, shortages, whatever you have, we're over 75% through, and we will continue pushing through, busting our asses to make certain that we are 100% done and ready to launch properly. And with the best products that you will ever use. Now, I want to take a moment and thank you from the bottom of my heart for your patience with me in creating this brand. I refuse to cut corners, I refuse to take shortcuts, and I refuse to give you anything less than something that will absolutely improve your skin. I hope that you will continue being excited about this brand, if not even more excited now after watching this video, because that is what we've been working on, and what we're doing is absolutely cutting edge, absolutely incredible for your skin, and arguably like nothing you've been conditioned to see. So my friend, I leave you with a note of hope and thanks, and for fuck's sake, I can't wait for you to get your pretty little hands on the revolution that will be VREA Cosmetics. I love you and thank you, and I'll keep you posted. Bye.